And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that cares to share some love. So if you feel the work of God working through you, please feel free. Every little bit is appreciated. And of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. We got John with us tonight. How you doing tonight, John?
Doing good, Keith. How you doing?
Good.
You doing good? Okay.
It's a little windy out there, but I made it to the meeting with the mayor again today and go over some more details. And of course, one of the first things I talked to him about was the issue with the trespass here locally. And so I gave him a little statement according to my view of what happened to the incident. And he gave me the name of the traveler's insurance that takes care of their fidelity bond. They don't have a surety bond, they have a fidelity bond. So we're going to get on them about that because I believe, in fact, they're supposed to have a surety bond. But I'll have to do some more research on that to definitively discern that. Because I believe the fidelity bond is just actually a bond with the Postal Service to relieve them of any culpability. But again, you know, I'll have to go do the research because as we've spoken of here recently, or as it relates to the indemnification, when we look on their postal site, they actually have a definition for fidelity bond. And it's basically relieving them of their liability or covering them for liability. And as my research goes, that's probably the right bond to have for all accounts that are posted. So again, like I said, I got to do some more research on that to make sure. But I'm not going to be a stickler on that, particularly in this situation, because like I said, with the mayor, I'm getting along with him good. And as I've expressed before, you know, back in the beginning when I first was doing this research and everything, I was gung-ho in going after them and making those accusations and filing those claims. And I was going to bring a big lawsuit and this and that. And I've changed my view on that quite early on. And so now that I've got the ball rolling with the mayor, and like I said before, I give him kudos. You know, he was a little upset because he misinterpreted what I said at the meeting the other night when I said it took 6 months to get a meeting with the mayor, and that was in the initial stages. Well, then after that first city council meeting, I got that meeting with the mayor, and he thought I was saying 6 months it took to get that meeting. No, I had been trying to get a meeting with him 6 months prior to that city council meeting. So yeah, again, I give him kudos for acting appropriately and getting that done right away. And then, like I said, I did a video after that and then expressed my gratitude towards being able to have that meeting and let people know that I think he's an upstanding guy that knows what he's doing and knows how this system's supposed to work. So, you know, I give him kudos. I like the way he's doing things. It's just, again, as a principal, he's got other people that are operating under him. And this is that part about the right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing always. So he's got people under him that are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, particularly like Officer Lindemann and Officer Bram. And though that incident went fine for me, and like I said, I still travel back and forth across that parking lot with impunity. And if it ever comes to it, like I said, I'm up for it. Take me to jail. But I guarantee you, like I said in the my version of the report, I told him I gave him a given name and the surname or the family name, and I gave him the date that I was born on as a presumption because I was there, but I couldn't obviously remember it. So if they take that information that I gave them specifically as a given name and a surname and the born day, and they convert it to a legal name, which is the first and last name, and then attach that birth date to it, what they've done is they've created a false record. because they converted the information and it's no longer true. I didn't give them a legal name, where if that's what they put down, then they converted it, and that's a falsification. So then we went over the context of the speech that I put forth this Monday as regards to communication with the people in the community, and that's being a specific obligation of their engagement with the community is to be able to communicate with them. And if they're going to disengage and not communicate from the people and yet use the people as their source or resource of income, then they're using those very people for their private gain without acknowledging them. And that's the misfeasance of trust. So then, along with that script that I presented for the Monday night's meeting, I attached the very codes that I was talking about the other night after the meeting, which was 5 CFR 575.102, where it talks about the competencies, the definition of employee, and the federal government. And again, that's that fidelity bond right there. Federal government includes the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission. So I think actually it would be proper to have that fidelity bond. So we'll see how that goes. But then also 5 CFR 2635.101, where it talks about the basic obligation of public service. So I'm going to pull that one up again. And John, if you've got anything to say, let me know here real quick before we get into this.
Well, bonds are like evidence of what they borrow. Is that accurate, Keith?
Correct.
Okay.
Bonding instrument is evidence of a debt. So it means there was somebody that borrowed and someone that loaned.
Okay, so then there must be bond trustees, and to me, they write the city charter and they tell the mayor what to do, but I can't prove that.
Right, and I think that's what that. See, a municipal publishing company is the one that publishes the municipal codes, and that's an interpretation of the state statutes for use at the local level. Same with the county. The county does the same thing, and when we find that structure as a corporate structure, that trustee is the one we're wanting, and the trustee is generally the one that holds the bond. They're the ones that hold the property, and so that's that traveler's insurance, and that's why they're the ones that are supposed to do that investigation, because they're the trustee with subordinates. See, the one holding the bonds is actually the trustee. The mayor is the executive of that organization that is chartered under that trust. So it's always the bonding agents. This is why I talk about the bail bondsmen, you know, and though I don't talk about them much anymore, I used to mention the fact that if the bail bondsman is the one that's doing all these bonds with the notary, there's something there. They know about those bonds. They have to know what's going on. So I would not recommend dealing with bail bondsmen at all. What you're doing by giving them that information is giving them access to your bond. That's your bond. You're the holder in due course with the ultimate right to perfect that title. They can't perfect it at all. They can't come out and say, well, I can perfect this title because my name is Keith Little. There's evidence that says otherwise. And that's the basic simple thing about what's right and what's wrong. If they're going to use your name, then it's yours. And I just had a big thing with my companion. I might be looking for another place to stay because she doesn't understand the very simple term government. The very simple term government. Govern, meant. And meant is the suffix added onto a verb that changes it to a noun. In this instance, govern is the verb, and govern means authority. Meant, it means mentality as the suffix. So you have the authoritative mentality. Government means authoritative mentality. If you are meek, you're going to get buried under that headstone with a ledgestone. It's a ledger. That's my interpretation. Whereas I'm supposed to inherit heaven. The meek shall inherit the earth. I'm going to speak boldly, rightly dividing the word of truth, as I ought to, so that I can inherit the heavens. I don't care to be here any longer. If this is what my personal experience is meant as a test, I'm done with the test. I don't want this test anymore. I'll do everything I'm required to from here on out, and that's it. I'm not going to do what other people tell me just because they believe and I've been indoctrinated. So let's take a look at the basic obligation of public service again.
So the trustee holds the security, Keith, right? But if it's a certificate that you hold, you're not beneficiary.
Correct. Correct. So the trustee is going to hold the documentation, the actual contract that's binding them. And in that contract, they have a surety bond or a fidelity bond in this case that's going to ensure the performance of that contract and ensure that upon completion of that contract, the contractors get paid. That's it. 2635.101, basic obligation of public service under Title 5, administrative personnel. And this is Office of Government Ethics. Standards of ethical conduct for employees of the executive branch. The mayor is the executive of that particular mayoral form of government at the municipal level. He is an officer or agent deemed necessary by the board. Each employee, public service is a public trust. Each employee has a responsibility to the United States government and its citizens to place loyalty to the Constitution, laws, and ethical principles above private gain. To ensure that every citizen can have complete confidence in the integrity of the federal government, each employee shall respect and adhere to the principles of ethical conduct set forth in this section. So as I told my companion, I don't give one fucking rat's ass what your job description is. Because if your job description is such and such and such and such, yet you don't provide and adhere to the ethical standards or principles of this section, then you are not fulfilling your job as it requires the ethics of. As well as implementing standards contained in this part. Remember, the implementing standards contained in this part are the contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders, commercial items, commercial products, or commercial services. And in supplemental agency regulations is the job description. The implementing standards are the contract. The ethics rise above both of those. So federal government, right here is their definition of federal government. And it says each employee of that federal government. So we can comprehend that employee of the federal government, when we see the definition of federal government, means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission, then that means everyone deemed an employee. Anyone organized under the laws of the United States. So if you go down to McDonald's and you get a job down at McDonald's, you are considered that employee. You are considered that employee. 5 CFR 2635.102, employee means any officer or employee of an agency, including a special government employee. It includes officers but not enlisted members of the uniformed services. It includes employees of a state or local government or other organization who are serving on detail to an agency. That detail is those restaurants, theaters, and other businesses conducting themselves in the United States government entities of the federal government in all things that they post to their accountings of their daily events as they run the course of commerce, trade, and business, performing the functions of public office. Pursuant to 5 U.S.C. 3371 et sequential, and for purposes other than subparts B and C of this part, it does not include the vice president or president or vice president. So it includes everybody else. Status as an employee is unaffected by pay or leave status, or in the case of special government employee, by the fact that the individual does not perform official duties on a given day. And this is all repetitive. Why they did this, again, like I pointed out yesterday in the vital statistics thing, they couldn't even spell health, and it went through all these agencies rereading it and make sure it's accurate and fine-tuned and everything, and they can't spell. And here we have another thing where means any officer, employee, da-da-da. This is all verbatim the same thing as this here. It was just a restatement. Okay? And then they restated this part a third time right here. So when you're competent of reading as a government official of a government publishing office manual and government publishing period, you would think that we could get away from this insane waste of having to read the exact same thing only to find out that you're just reading the same thing over and over again. And that, of course, goes to what, folks? Federal government and their competencies means the knowledge, skills, abilities, behaviors, and other characteristics an individual needs to perform the duties of a position. And if the government officials can't put out a grade A document, then they should get what kind of a grade? What would you grade that as? I'd have to give it at least a C or a D, because an A or B student would have at least recognized the redundancy. So let's go back to the ethics. It says B, general principles, and stop me anytime, John. The following general principles apply to every employee. There's no inclusions or exclusions. That's ambiguously means every employee across the board. You're going to McDonald's to get a job application so you can get a job to become an employee at McDonald's, performing the functions that you're required to perform for that job in public, officially, because you gave them an official document saying so, and gave them an official name and number of a United States business. May form the basis for the standards contained in this part. Where a situation is not covered by the standards set forth in this part, employees shall apply the principles set forth in this section in determining whether their conduct is proper. Shall apply to the principles set forth in this section in determining whether their conduct is proper. Again, they're supposed to be determining whether their conduct is proper, not making accusations against you saying you're not doing it right. Because when some cocksucker sits there and tells me I'm just doing my job, I beg your pardon? Your job has more details than just my actions. It has to do with your actions. And when you tell me you're just doing your job, it tells me you don't know the first thing about this part here. Applying principles set forth in this section, which are ethical principles, that if you're just doing your job and you can't find an answer, you have a duty to research it and find that answer. Not just say, well, I'm just doing my job, you have to talk to my boss. There's been an established line of communication where we're supposed to be able to resolve situations with certain members. So when we call the clerk because we have an issue with the clerk or details having to do with the clerk's job, such as who is holding the bond, that's a clerk issue, then we should be able to talk to the clerk and not have the clerk tell us, well, I'm just doing my job. You'll have to talk to my boss. I already spoke to your boss. He told me to talk to you. The public service is a public trust, requiring employees to place loyalty to the Constitution, the laws, and ethical principles above private gain. This is the last thing they're concerned about. They are not concerned about ethical principles. The first thing they're concerned about is that paycheck, and that means they don't give a shit about the ethical principles, the laws, and the Constitution. If they're willing to violate your rights to get that paycheck, they're willing to violate your rights and profess that they're enforcing the law, but they're not going to argue it alongside the road. You'll have to talk to the judge. He knows the law. Then why are you alongside the road pulling people over and throwing them in jail when you don't know the law? That seems to go against the ethical principles of knowing and diligent care of your position as an obligated party to myself, the one you're obligated to. Employees shall not hold financial interests that conflict with the conscientious performance of duties. And this is that very thing. If you're worried about taking a check home at the end of the week, and your boss tells you you have a incentive to pull over so many people regardless, otherwise you won't get a bigger check, you're going to remain down here, or you might even get demoted. That's a conflict with your conscientious performance of duty. It's altering your conscience in the first place to make you think you have to have so many criminals in the system in order to get paid. You're actually creating false criminal statistics. And that's not just the employees. Again, I urge everybody to learn this stuff. Because if you keep calling yourself a United States citizen, you're causing the false statistics as well, across the board. Resident, same thing. You're causing false statistics. 3, employees shall not engage in financial transactions using non-public government information or allow the improper use of such information to further any private interest. So when the nice policy officer comes over and asks me for my name, and I give him the given name and the surname and a born date, and he writes it down as the legal name and the birth date and says that I've been trespassed, I know he's lying, and I will keep continuing to go across that parking lot from point A to point B, most expedient path, most direct path, without stopping, without interfering with anybody else, with impunity. Converting that information is using non-public government information and converting it. You're using non-public government information. You're using a name and a number in the system by getting private information from me and using it as government information to pull me into the public. And you're doing it improperly as use of such information to further any private interest so you can get a paycheck. An employee shall not, except as permitted by subpart B of this part, solicit or accept any gift or other item of monetary value from any person or entity seeking official action from entity, business entity, seeking official action, not private, official, from doing business with or conducting activities regulated by the employee's agency. So the police, activities regulated by their agency is their business charter and policies, and not the law of the people, or whose interests may be substantially affected by the performance or non-performance of the employee's duties. Substantially affected by the performance or non-performance of the employee's duties, and those employees have an obligation to the people, and that obligation is not to do business with them, is not to conduct activities regulated by the employee's agency. It's not in an official action. If you're interacting with private individuals, you cannot be using this to affect their lives by the performance or non-performance of your duties. Your duties as obligated parties of a public service, which is public trust, are obligated to the beneficiaries or benefactors, as I like to call us. 5, employees. Go ahead.
That's one job of the judge: protect beneficiaries.
Yep.
But you got to tell them that you're, a beneficiary of the public trust. Bring in your social security card, blow it up, show it to them. Done deal.
Yeah, I don't even, I gave him in today's meeting with the mayor, I told you I handed over a statement of separation, and that's a clarification that I won't use the social security number anymore. I understand why it's used. I can't use it anymore. If I'm going to use it, it's going to be as an indemnification, as evidence. That's it. So number 5, it says, employees shall put forth honest effort in the performance of their duties. And when you get right up in my face and try your intimidation tactics, get 6 inches away from me, get right up in my face. That's not performance of your duties. That's intimidation tactics, and I don't fucking like it. Employees shall not knowingly make unauthorized commitments or promises of any kind purporting to bind the government. So when you're asking for identification and somebody says no, guess what? You don't have authorization to demand that government identification and then make a promise or commitment purporting to bind that very government. Seven, employees shall not use public office for private gain. Yet that's the only thing they use it for. I'm going to go get a job because I need to pay for the bills. That's private gain. Employees shall act impartially and not give preferential treatment to any private organization or individual. So again, when you go to the school and you pose that I've been trespassed, and you get in my face to tell me I've been trespassed after you take a given name and a surname and the date I was born on, I beg to differ, you lying fucking heathens. You show your impartiality, because I know you didn't go up to that school secretary and get in her face. 9, employees shall protect and conserve federal property and shall not use it for other than authorized activities. So let me ask you, on the premise that if that church over here, that Waterloo Community School, that Baptist church, has a contract with the government of the United States. Isn't that federal property? Federal government means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service and Postal Regulatory Commission. For all of those businesses, they're running as American or United States businesses, as United States citizens, including those churches and schools under 501c3, saying they're non-profit. They're still running a business. Sounds like federal property to me. Ten employees, because we have to remember that's not defined as anything other than property. It's pretty ambiguous. We don't have real estate property. We don't have any kind of premises, and it's just federal property. Is that contract federal property? Isn't that who you bonded with to get that place, to put that parking lot on land that shall not be sold forever? For it is his, and we are strangers and sojourners with him. How much of this planet are you going to plant concrete on top of and then say, well, you got to go around? You're going to tell God he's got to go around? Or are you going to just wait till the next tornado comes by and rips up that building in that parking lot? Or are you going to one day finally concede as a Baptist fucking church and a Waterloo Christian fucking school that you don't live in fear of such things, and you're not going to placate that the image and likeness of another man is something to be feared, and you're going to tell him to get off of that parking lot, that you own it? When are you going to wake up?
Look what happened to them when they tried to pave a road over Bugs Bunny's house. That's a lesson to us.
Absolutely. We should pay attention to some of that stuff, you know? That's why I pointed out Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. We have to start paying attention. It tells us things. 10. Employees shall not engage in outside employment or activities, including seeking or negotiating for employment, that conflict with official government duties and responsibilities. The very job you pose with those incentives conflicts with the government duties and responsibilities according to the Constitution. You took an oath to the Constitution. You're supposed to abide by that, the laws of the United States, which is your contract, and the ethical principles above your private gain. Yet you violate both the contract and the trust by disregarding ethics. And that's in conflict with official government duties and responsibilities. 11. Employees shall disclose waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption to appropriate authorities. So when the district attorney's assistant comes and says, well, we don't have anything to do with the federal code. Excuse me? I gave you evidence that your clerk did a conversion that I wasn't familiar with, and that is a corruption. I haven't called it abuse, fraud, or waste yet, but it's a corruption. It's a corruption of the truth, because when we find out the truth that United States citizen is a United States business, and that's why they use the firm name. It's the business name. We know there's other documentation that's sitting there in the backside that we know nothing about, that wasn't disclosed to us. Yet we were given full authority to be the representative. So if you're given full authority to be an accountant and don't know the accounting, how do you expect to be able to do that job? If you're working for a paving company, you don't know paving, do you expect you're going to be able to keep your job long if you don't at least learn it? And 12, employees shall satisfy in good faith their obligations as citizens, including all just financial obligations. Just financial being financed to settle, to put an end to. So just settlement obligations. They're obligated to settle. They're not obligated to keep the insanity going, but yet that's what they do. They will ignore and put the blame on you, have you arrested, and that is not just settlement obligations. I'm trying to settle it and you won't deal with me. I am the settler. You have an obligation, especially those such as federal, state, or local taxes that are imposed by law. Imposed. So if you're a natural creature and you already are of the law, and the law that they prescribe is an imposition, a disposition, a deposition. It's a taking away of your natural position. Then what does that tell you? It's already unjust. 13. Employees shall adhere to all laws and regulations that provide equal opportunity for all Americans. Not United States citizens. Americans. Let me read this one more time. Employees shall adhere to all laws and regulations that provide equal opportunity for all Americans, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, or handicap. My national origin is American. I was born on the lands of America. I wasn't born in Dubuque, Iowa. I wasn't born in the state of Iowa. I wasn't born in the United States. Again, remember, if you think you were born in the United States and you come to find out that the United States is located in Washington, D.C., and you're claiming you were born down on the peninsula of Florida, but that was the United States, and therefore you're born in the United States, then you're obviously lost in the sauce, baby, because if you don't understand the very simple definitions that we've been going over, then maybe you need to learn how to read. United States business means a United States citizen under 15 U.S.C. 4724. That is not a national origin. That is the origin, that is the establishment of a United States business, not a national origin. And nobody thus makes a claim to the national origin. Before I was formed in the belly, he knew me. Before I was cast forth from my mama's waters and discharged as a man, he sanctified me, and he ordained me a prophet unto the nations. But somewhere along the line, somebody didn't communicate that, and so instead, they created a national origin of conferring a nationality of United States citizenship as an American or as a United States business. And nobody ever told me. Had I known this, I'd have been able to rebut it all with Jeremiah 1:5. 14. Employees shall endeavor to avoid any actions creating the appearance that they are violating the law or the ethical standards set forth in this part. And if they don't know this, then they will create the appearance that they are violating the law. And that's what I'm speaking on. They are, in fact, violating their duties to ethical principles, which is a part of everyone's job. Whether particular circumstances create an appearance that the law or these standards have been violated shall be determined from the perspective of a reasonable person with knowledge of the relevant facts. So, as a reasonable person with knowledge of the relevant facts, as as they relate to the name, the number, and the birth date. That's all I've got to come forth to correct those records. But yet, when I give them that knowledge, they look at me like it means nothing. This is disturbing. Or if I contact them on the phone, they hang up on me. Or they want to talk to me instead of passing me on to the executive. And then they get chewed out. And they don't like that, so they call the police. I don't give a fuck. I no longer give a fuck. In case the world doesn't understand, listen up again. Though I seem to be getting better with this lung cancer, I do have lung cancer. I don't know how much longer I've got left to live, and I'm not going to lay down. I have absolutely nothing to lose. Related statutes. In addition to the standards of ethical conduct set forth in this part, there are conflict of interest statutes that prohibit certain conduct. Criminal conflict of interest statutes of general applicability to all employees, 18 U.S.C. 201, 203, 205, 208, and 209, are summarized in the appropriate subparts of this part, blah, 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 blah. That's for them, right? And you can look those up if you want. Welcome back, John. But in the meantime,
how about earlier in the show, we were talking about false personation.
Yep.
I think that's in 18 U.S.C. too, Keith. 912.
Yeah, let's take a look at those. Because there's an interesting one we're going to look at here. This is 18 U.S. Code 912. Officer or employee of the United States. It says whoever. Okay. This is 1 U.S.C. 1. Remember we talked about 1 U.S.C. 1, words denoting number, gender, and so forth. And here in the very first one, it says the word person and whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. That means this individual is in a like category with companies, societies, partnerships, firms, corporations, companies, associations that include contracts. They're contractual, okay? So the person and whoever, the words person and whoever are contractual as it relates to those types of things. So we go back to 18 U.S.C. 912. It says whoever falsely assumes or pretends to be an officer or employee acting under the authority of the United States or any department, agency, or officer thereof, and acts as such or in such pretended character demands or obtains any money, paper, document, or thing of value shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. Okay? That's a 3-year sentence just for asking me for ID. Whoever falsely assumes or pretends to be an officer or employee acting under the authority of the United States or any department, agency, or officer thereof, and acts as such. They're trying to get me to act as such by putting forth a government ID when they know I'm not a government official. I'm not going to play these silly games. No more. That's a government ID that was obtained through official documentation that you signed in an official capacity because it wasn't unambiguous. Therefore, it was taken as an official signature. So let's look at the one prior to that. 18 U.S. Code 911, citizen of the United States. Are you a citizen of the United States, John?
I thought I was.
Whoever falsely and willfully represents himself to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined under this title or in prison not more than 3 years or both. You want to face that consequence, or should you just deny being a United States citizen? Because there's no code that says that you get thrown in prison for not being a United States citizen. You want to play on the safe side and say I'm not a United States citizen? I would. Because they ain't got a code that says they can imprison anybody but somebody else that's claiming falsely that they're a United States citizen by identification. Merely by identifying as a United States citizen, you can be thrown in prison for 3 years. Keep identifying as a United States citizen when it's not true.
Yeah, and on the passport applications, they ask if your parents were.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, he spent a lot of money on alcohol and booze. I don't know if he could run a business. Now, my adoptive parents, they worked for the government. They had a contract. So, yeah, they had to pay taxes. So, yeah, I was induced into that contract situation like that. When they adopted me at 10 years of age, go get a paper out. Yeah, I was indoctrinated into contracting as a 10-year-old boy. Imagine that. So let's take a look at the previous one. What's that say? Not found. Okay. So let's take a look at 18 U.S.C. 7, which is a special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States. The term special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States is used in this title includes the high seas. Any other waters within the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state, and any vessel belonging in whole or in part to the states or any citizen thereof, or to any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States or any state, territory, district, or possession thereof, when such vessel is within the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state. The admiralty jurisdiction is the naval jurisdiction. Okay? That's the military jurisdiction that they use on land and water. It's the admiral on land that assigns the captain to the vessel to go out on the seas. So here we have a situation where that nationality conferred to you upon birth is the admiralty conference of a maritime business, a maritime vessel. Any vessel registered, licensed, or enrolled under the laws of the United States and being on a voyage upon the waters of any of the Great Lakes or any of the waters connecting them, or upon the St. Lawrence River where the same constitutes the international boundary line. Any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the United States and under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction thereof, or any place purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States by consent of the legislator of the state in which the same shall be, and this is the concurrent jurisdiction thereof. So again, the states cannot say at any level, state, county, or municipal, that they do not follow the codes of the United States, because the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States is with a concurrent jurisdiction of the states, because they ceded that exclusive jurisdiction to the United States. So they could hold concurrent jurisdiction. because they are landlocked and don't have Admiralty maritime laws of the high seas because they don't have boundary waters to access them. This is why the Mississippi River is so important, why the Civil War was so important. It wasn't about slavery. It was about enforcing commerce across the land by use of the laws of the high sea. Piracy. 4, the erection of a fort, magazine, arsenal, dockyard, or other needful building. Is your private place of rest a needful public building? If not, they have no jurisdiction. But again, this is the problem with the Postal Service and putting that mailbox and postal number on that house. You're saying, you're implying by adhesion of that address on a mailbox onto your house, it's an adhesion, and you are implying that you have a contract with the Postal Service on the private side, pulling you into public.
It's a home, not a node.
Right. See, when they go down their postal roads, those driveways are considered nodes so that they can stop and deliver things. You've got to reassert that. That's not a node for your public pathway. That is my private property. The next one says, any island, rock, or key containing deposits of guano. That's a prerequisite. So what are these claims on all these other islands, rocks, and keys that don't have deposits of guano? Or do they all have deposits of guano? I don't know. Any aircraft, I'm just asking questions, and because of the verbiage, because this says there's a prerequisite or key containing deposits of guano, that's a prerequisite. If there's no deposits of guano, then this claim doesn't exist on those islands, rocks, or keys. Any aircraft belonging in whole or in part to the United States or any citizen thereof. So any aircraft belonging in whole or in part to the United States or any business thereof, or to any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States or any state, territory, district, or possession thereof, while such aircraft is in flight over the high seas and over any other waters within the Admiralty maritime jurisdiction. That doesn't cover flights over the land. Oops. 6, any vehicle used or designed for flight or navigation in space. Now we have to define space, because I have a certain amount of 6 feet of space between me and my neighbor that is an ethical premise for respect. So now they're saying space. Do they mean outer space, inner space? What space? And on Registry of United States, pursuant to the Treaty on Principles governing activities of states in the exploration and use of outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, and the Convention on Registration of Objects launched into outer space. While that vehicle is in flight, which is from the moment when all external doors are closed on Earth following embarkation until the moment when such door is opened on Earth for disembarkation, or in the case of a forced landing, until the component authorities take over the responsibility for the vehicle and for persons and property aboard. 7, any place outside the jurisdiction of any nation. Notice that's lowercase. With respect to an offense by or against a national of the United States. So keep claiming that national of the United States. you're subject to this special maritime jurisdiction, impliedly. To the extent permitted by international law, any foreign vessel during a voyage having a scheduled departure from or arrival in the United States, as used in this title in a territorial sense, includes all places and waters, continental or insular, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, except the Canal Zone. So that means all the states, too.
As they define states.
Right. And that's a foreign vessel, not a foreign ship. It could be a car on land. It's not saying on water or on land. It's not saying a vessel in the air on water or land. It's saying a foreign vessel during a voyage having a scheduled departure from or arrival in the United States. If I was born in the state and they gave them records to the United States, was that an entrance into the United States? There was already an arrival of data elements, private data elements that they're using as government information. That's the conversion. It was never meant, Mom never meant that information to be converted to government information. She thought she was giving private information out for a benefit. Now everything's being made public. You get pulled over alongside that road, you use that name and number for as you were told it was a benefit, and you get everything's put in public. How much do you make? Where do you work? They'll even call your tax papers up. You keep paying taxes. I ain't paid taxes in 20 years, folks. In the United States, out of 9, with respect to offenses committed by or against a national of the United States, as that term is used in Section 101 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, the premises of United States diplomatic, consular, military, or other United States government missions or entities in foreign states, including the buildings, parts of buildings, and land appurtenant or ancillary thereto, or used for the purposes of those missions or entities, irrespective of ownership. This is that church across the way. They have no diplomatic, consular, or military ethics. They live in fear, despite the scriptures that they push. Residences in foreign states and the land appurtenant or ancillary thereto, irrespective of ownership, used for purposes of those missions or entities, or used by United States personnel assigned to those missions or entities. See, as that church, nonprofit specifically, 501c3, they have diplomatic, consular, and military communications. That's what the chaplain does. See, the military is supposed to counsel with the chaplain when it comes to life discerning events. Nothing in this paragraph shall be deemed to supersede any treaty or international agreement with which this paragraph conflicts. So the Treaty of Berne, which protects the author's literary and artistic rights exclusive to all others, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the Constitution concurs. Let's pull that up and read it. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. The Congress shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. as it goes to LLI-WEX. It shows here. The Berne Convention requires that all members have certain levels of copyright protection, and they must protect the works made by citizens of other members. This is equal protection of the law among the states. Copyrights or copyrighted works are considered protected as soon as the work is manifested in physical form and does not require registration. So what are people trying to convince you? What are these gurus telling you that you have to provide a copyright? The manifested physical form is the copyright. It is patent already. It is observable. That is what patent sounds or means. So let's look that up.
Yeah, that never made sense, Keith. To me, it makes a little sense to do a service mark. I mean, to copyright a service mark, but you really can't copyright a name or an actual thing, right?
Absolutely, and that's why you can't. And they say you can't copyright the name. So what do? You create a sigil, and what you see is my sigil.
In case people didn't know, a service mark is like the McDonald's sign.
Correct, a sigil.
Yeah.
Same thing. They just call it something different. So let me pull up here. See the sigil on my back screen? That's my sigil. And I have it on a letterhead. This is my stationery. It's a blank piece of paper known as commercial paper. It's a negotiable instrument.
Very nice.
That's all you got. It's simple. That's patent. It's observable. I created this. It's exclusive to me, and the information on it is exclusive to me. Those are controlling elements. Controlling elements. This is the thing about controlling your mind. You have to govern your mentality. So let's look at it again in my virtual background. Go back to this. And patent as a noun. Here it says open letter as a 14th century or official document from some authority granting permission to do something. A license granting an office, right, title, etc. Literally, open letter from Old French patente, open, open, lying open, lie open, be open, to spread. See what else? Patent as a verb. To obtain right to land. Leviticus 25, verse 23 and 24. The land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine, and ye are strangers and sojourners with me in all of the lands of your possession. Ye shall grant a redemption. And it says by securing letters patent. From patent as a noun. The meaning, obtain a copyright to an invention. Again, if it's already patent, all you have to do is explain it. You created it, it's patent, it's observable, it is already copywritten. You just have to make a copy of a document explaining it. On that document, you might want to create a logo, a sigil, a brand, a mark. Obtain exclusive right or monopoly. This is the thing about the copyright. When you create something and you want to let the world know who it belongs to, you create a symbol. a logo, a mark, a brand. This is why Prince created his sigil. He was tired of the corporatocracy taking all of his profits. So he explicitly removed those works from their hands patently by creating a copyright. 1789. Important date, huh? Judiciary Act. A privilege granted by the Crown via letters patent. A privilege granted by the Crown via letters patent. Judiciary Act. It's patent. You can read it today. It's still there. It's their work. Patent as an adjective. So we have a noun, a verb, and now an adjective. Patent is all three. Late 14th century, granting a right, privilege, or power. Literally open letter. See patent as a noun from Old French. Patente, open. Open, lying open. Present participle of patir, lie open, be open. The sense of open to view. Plain, clear, openly, publicly, unmistakably. What is a letter? It is a graphic symbol, alphabetic symbol, written character conveying information about sound in speech. So if you have a symbol that doesn't convey sound in speech, can you still tell people things through that symbol? Likely not. They have to come to you to ask what you mean. Again, why Prince created his symbol. Anybody that wanted to know his works, they had to go to him. From Old French letter, character, personality even. Letter, missive, note. In plural, literature, writing, learning. Letter of the alphabet, also an epistle. Writing, document, literature, great books, science, learning. A word of uncertain origin. According to Watkins, perhaps via Etruscan from Greek diphthera, tablet. From a hypothetical root deaf to stamp. 18 U.S.C. 8 stamps and other representatives of value. I think it's pretty clear that if you start doing your research and learn the language, I urge everybody, you got to learn the language before you can do the research. I got all kinds of people out there professing they're doing the research and they're coming back with this, this, and this, and they're still babbling, showing that they evidently don't understand English. They don't comprehend that it's a lingua franca and that you have to do some research into its origins to find out whether that definition actually applies or that word actually applies to you through its definitions and synonyms. Is there a better term that you can use that would alter its interpretation slightly or grandly enough to make sure that they're not confusing or commingling so that it is unmistakable? And with that, we come to the end. I think I'm going to come back later with the points of law on the restatement of separation, so we can get into the discussion about public records and who's responsible on them according to those codes. So I'll be back at 9 with the restatement event of separation review on the codes. And on the way out, what do you got, John?
Not much, really. I was just glad to share the 18 USC, false personation. It's right there, black and white.
Yeah, and there's a lot of codes in there that you could look up and see that many of them apply. Like it mentioned there, there's several 18 USC 201, 203, 205, and various others. Um, there's some that I'm going to be mentioning tonight that are particulars that they don't necessarily, can't remember if they have fines and imprisonment in them, but they certainly have some discernment about who's supposed to be keeping the record and stuff, and that it's their obligation. Again, when it comes to the basic obligation of public service, which is a public trust, then we have to be, as people, be able to trust that the record and its integrity is unmistakable. And that's the problem. It is. It's full of mistakes. How do I know? Because I wasn't taught how to even enter the data elements. How do I know this? Because I entered data elements that I thought I knew what those terms and conditions meant, and nobody ever taught me. Nobody ever taught me what resident really means when it comes to the law in the United States. Nobody ever taught me what United States citizen means in reality to the law in the United States when it comes to those terms, and how it's incorporated as if though I'm performing the functions of public office in all of these venues, even as a child. They're taking private data elements from your children as if though it's government information. What is that telling you? It should tell you, hey, it's time to stop. That's how they're getting control over our families. That's how they're destroying our families. Because we're helping them.
Yeah, they're registering private data. That's one of the big things they do early on, right?
Absolutely. And with that,
see you later. Yeah.
You bet. I appreciate you coming up. Hope to see you again at 9. And again, folks, the more we have on panel, the better the discussion gets. So I would urge others to join the panel, please, please. But in the meantime, go ahead and feel free to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody that would care to share some love. That's an act of God, of course. All donations, always appreciated. A brother could certainly use it. And in the meantime, you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll see you at 9. Bye now.